Hello everybody, how's it going? Today I just did a recent illustration piece and I want to do a little breakdown of that piece so that I can show you how I did that piece and how I did that thingy. That's a bad intro, let's do that again. So first I want to cover the process of this illustration piece and then sort of go into the colors and things like that and also the story behind this piece. So where did the idea for this piece come from? Well, I see a lot of people, including myself, struggling to come up with illustration ideas. The way I'm trying to solve that for myself is by having a project. For example, this piece, the idea for this piece came from an illustration which I did earlier of Ganesh, the Hindu god Ganesh, right? So this is the Hindu god Muruga, so it's sort of going with that theme right here. And once I did that, I was like, man, I should do like 11 more illustrations, take them all together and make a calendar of chibi Hindu gods drawn in my style. That's the overarching project and I'm getting ideas for these illustrations. So work in projects is a great way to do things. So once I decided on the Hindu god Muruga, he's the god of war apparently. I started sketching this thing out normally, right? Thought I'll just draw him in a typical standing pose because I didn't exactly have a story for this piece. Usually when I'm drawing an illustration or I'm doing an illustration, I try to put some sort of a story into it. What I had to do was, or what I wanted to do was, okay, if I don't have a story for this piece, I'm going to create a very interesting composition. This idea came into effect, which is I want to show this aspect of grandeur. The god of war shows up in battle, in the middle of the battle. Grandiosity, right? That moment, that feeling is what I actually wanted to capture in this piece. His vehicle, Hindu gods all have vehicles. Ganesh has a mouse for a vehicle, so just saying. It's kind of cute. His one is peacock. And I know you might think, that's kind of like a very passive animal for the god of war. So that's why I made it a bit larger and bigger so that it's more grandeur and to sort of match with this chibi god that I'm trying to sort of draw here. So how do I show this grandiosity? The one thing that came to my head was this. Have you seen those old movies or even like recent movies where you have these kings sitting on these big thrones with so many things behind them? So it shows that these are not just normal individuals, they have some big power behind the backing, right? Because the throne represents the kingdom represents power, and the person who sits on the throne controls that power. That was the idea. I don't have a throne here. I wanted this character to sit on a throne. So I thought, why don't I just make the composition in such a way that the feathers of the peacock is the thing that's behind the person. It sort of acts like a throne and then sort of like a place, sort of made in gold to sit on. And then the god of fire has the weapon, the veil. I wanted to make something interesting. I didn't have exactly a story. So I thought, let's use this idea, show that element or the emotion of grandness or grandiosity. So that is the idea of this piece. Next up, colors. I have a very simple process when it comes to choosing color. For some reason, I always love the complementary color scheme. If you know a little bit about color theory, which is one of the classes of my digital art, my simple course, links are down below the description. Complementary color scheme is like two colors on the opposite end of the spectrum. When you put them together, they sort of react in a very contrasting way and it's just beautiful to look at. So I sort of went with that color scheme. I knew there were some colors which I cannot basically change. I can play with them, not change, which is the peacock. I can't put a pink peacock in here, it's gonna look weird. I had to put a blue peacock. So I went with a blue peacock and I knew the background feathers are gonna be somewhat bluish, greenish type deal. I thought, okay, these are all on the cooler end of the color scheme, right? The peacock, the feathers and things like that. I am going to make the Murugan in warmer colors because his skin is warm, darker skin tone, because he's a Tamil god, so that Tamil people are slightly darker on the skin tone like me, and to complement the peacock and the feathers by going with very pinkish, purplish colors, sort of analogous things on one end of the color wheel. I've already used this sort of color scheme in one of my other pieces, ZHC piece. I've used, pinks, purples, and a little bit of touches of blue in there. Now here's the cool part though. If you look at the feathers, I didn't go for green. I went for a slightly more of like a turquoise-ish, I don't know the exact terms and all that, slightly going towards the blues so that it felt cooler. It starts out with a cool on the outside, right? Outside, it's all cool. But as you go in, it becomes warmer. And then as you go even more in, it becomes cool again. So that's why I chose like blues for the eyes and for the headgear right here. Vary the things right throughout this whole thing. So that's how I chose the colors for this piece. Sort of very simple explanation of how I did it. Also, give a comment down below in the thingy how many hours I took to finish this illustration piece. You just guess, and see if you guessed right.